By the summer of 1940, Switzerland found itself surrounded by a dangerous neighbour to the north, east and west, Nazi Germany. The south wasn't any better, Switzerland bordering fascist Italy, Germany's ally. As the war progressed, Switzerland became both a place of refuge for escaping Allied POWs on the run from camps in Germany and Italy, and also a safe place to land stricken bombers that couldn't make it back to Allied airfields. Under the terms of the 1929 Geneva Convention, Switzerland was obligated to intern for the duration of the war military personnel that crossed its borders, and the Swiss authorities created 2 camps, one for Allied officers at Davos in the Alps and one for other ranks prisoners at Adelboden. For those Allied soldiers and airmen that attempted to escape from these camps, they were sent to the Waiwillemoos prison camp run by the Swiss army, just like a regular POW camp in Germany. The question of airspace violations was particularly annoying for the Swiss, who had mobilized their armed services at the outbreak of war and ultimately conducted what might be called a robust defense of their airspace. The Swiss Air Force had up-to-date fighter aircraft. From Germany, they had purchased Messerschmitt Bf 109s, and before France was occupied, had an agreement to license-build Morane-Saulnier D-3800 fighters. A modernization program in the late 1930s ensured that the Swiss Air Force, though small, was well-trained, well-equipped, and even had its own aircraft industry. Aircraft were even based in caverns to protect against air attack, and an integrated air raid warning service backed up the Air Force and civil defense. Frontline defense rested on single-seat interceptors, including 90 purchased from Germany in the late 1930s, augmented by the license-built French fighters and over 150 domestically manufactured fighter bombers. In 1940, during the Battle of France, Swiss Air Force fighters had shot down 11 German aircraft with the loss of 3 of their own as they attempted to deter Luftwaffe overflights. The Germans responded by threatening sanctions, perhaps even invasion, and the Swiss stopped intercepting German aircraft. However, the mass Allied bombing campaign against Germany led to fresh attempts to deter particularly US overflights of Swiss territory. Some American and British bombers used Swiss airspace as a relative safe zone during transit to and from targets in Germany. And in 1943, the Swiss Air Force was sent up to shoot them down in an undeclared war. The first successes were 2 RAF bombers downed on the night of the 12th to 13th of July 1943 by Swiss anti-aircraft batteries over Valais in the southwestern part of the country. American bombers came in larger numbers, targeting Bavaria and Austria in daylight raids. A US B-24 Liberator was downed by Swiss Messerschmitt 109s on the 1st of October 1943 near Bad Ragaz. Only 3 Americans survived the encounter. During 1943, Swiss fighters downed 6 Allied bombers, with 4 more brought down by anti-aircraft guns, killing 36 Allied airmen, the survivors being interned. The Americans also repeatedly bombed Switzerland, which did little to improve relations between the 2 nations. These bombings were supposed cases of mistaken identity, but some historians have maintained that Switzerland's cosy relationship with the Nazis, in particular the behaviour of Swiss banks and the passage of German troop trains and trains carrying industrial supplies through the supposedly neutral territory, may have played a part in sending a warning to the Swiss government. The worst example occurred on the 1st of April 1944, when 50 American B-24s flew off course and attacked the Swiss town of Schaffhausen, 235 kilometers south of their actual target, the German city of Mannheim. The B-24s deposited 60 tons of bombs on Schaffhausen, killing 40 Swiss, injuring 270 and destroying a fair amount of the town. An Allied investigation found that bad weather and a much higher than normal wind speed had confused the American navigators, leading to the tragedy, for which the US government paid the Swiss $4 million by way of an apology. Relations between the US and Switzerland remained strained, as evidenced by a full-blown air battle that took place a few months later. Another aerial incident with the Germans occurred on the night of the 28th to 29th of April 1944, when a German Messerschmitt Bf 110 G4 night fighter pursued a British Lancaster bomber into Swiss airspace. The German suffered engine trouble and was forced to land at the Swiss air base at Dübendorf, and was interned. The aircraft was very sensitive, as it mounted the latest Liechtenstein radar and Schrägermusik gun installation. The Luftwaffe feared the Swiss would use the aircraft themselves, but a secret deal was struck, and the Me-110 was burned under German supervision in return for 12 brand new Messerschmitt Bf 109 G6 Gustav fighters. These 109s would soon be used against the Americans by the Swiss. On the 5th of September 1944, a damaged US B-17 Flying Fortress crossed the Swiss border and was pounced on by Swiss fighters. The B-17 had an escort of US P-51 Mustangs, and in the ensuing dogfight, the P-51s shot down one Swiss Messerschmitt 109, killing its pilot, and damaged another. Further bombings took place in 1945. On the 22nd of February, US aircraft hit 13 different towns across Switzerland, killing 21 people. All supposedly accidents. On the 4th of March 1945, 6 American B-24 bombers became separated from the main group heading for Aschaffenburg in Germany, and mistaking Zurich for the German town of Freiburg, deposited 12.5 tons of high explosives and 12 tons of incendiaries over the Swiss city, killing 5 and causing major damage. Incredibly, while this group of B-24s was bombing Zurich, more lost American bombers hit the Swiss city of Basel with 12.5 tons of high explosives and 5 tons of incendiaries. The undeclared hostilities between the United States and Switzerland cost the Americans dearly financially. In October 1949, the US government paid the Swiss $14.4 million in reparations. Today, some $209 million. The Swiss had also accumulated a large collection of US bombers. In this clip, we see Swiss MS-3800 fighters force a damaged American B-24 Liberator to land. This B-24 was one of many foreign aircraft that made emergency landings in Switzerland after sustaining battle damage from German flak or fighters, or suffering mechanical problems. They would be escorted all the way to the ground by Swiss fighters, and the crews taken into custody and sent to one of the internment camps for the duration. The Swiss collection point was very crowded by the end of the war. After the war, the B-24s and B-17s were repaired by US servicemen and flown out. In total, 198 non-Swiss aircraft had landed there during the war, plus another 56 that had crashed. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my new audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.